Hello, welcome to another episode of Cotton. And today, my guest is Dr. Rathin Roy. I think I would introduce my viewers who Dr. Rathin Roy is. Dr. Rathin Roy was the director of the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, New Delhi, and a former member of the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister of India. And when was this period? When were you?
It was Prime Minister Modi,
Ah,
2016 to 2019.
okay, 90. So that is important. So he holds degrees in economics from St. Stephen's College and Jawaharlal Nehru University and a PhD from the University of Cambridge. Earlier, he held senior roles with the UNDP, including as director of its Asia Pacific Regional Center and the International Policy Center for Inclusive Growth. He also served as economic advisor to the 13th Finance Commission and as a member of the 7th Central Pay Commission. A noted expert in applied macroeconomic and fiscal policy, he has worked across more than 80 countries. Now, the other day, his friend Parakala Prabhakar, he forwarded an article by Dr. Roy which appeared in the Economic Times. And there he wrote, it's not a very big, long article, it's a small piece, but it actually captured the essence of the present unrest going on in the country. So when I read that piece, I thought that if I could interview him, that will be a great thing. And I'm so happy that he readily agreed. So this interview is basically a further exposition of your views expressed in that article. So I read a portion of the article and then we go take then I ask the questions, I begin my questions. The current protests reflect this solidarity. There is a little earlier, it started from a little earlier. They are the first since the mid 1970s Navnirman agitation to be focused on socio-economic questions impacting a broad swathe of population that is not defined by religion, caste, region, profession, or anger at rap or malfeasance. The discontent expressed by Zangers on the streets of Delhi and across cities and towns of India is about the absence of any political promise of prosperity driven by jobs. This is this very important observation. And now my first question is, could you explain in more detail what you mean by the lottery of indentured slavery and by the political class not taking responsibility for its breakdown?
Yes. So thank you very much for interviewing me. It's a delight to connect with the Northeast. I'm very inspired. Despite nowadays, the Northeast only comes into focus because of atrocities in Manipur or because of Mr. Horma's attempts to drive, I don't know who, seems like almost everybody out of Assam. Uh, and so it's nice to actually talk about a serious issue, which is very important to the Northeast. Let me first explain, I think, what I meant by the fact that this is the first socioeconomic protest since Navnirman. So I'm almost 60 years old. And in my time, we have had important protests of a mass character. First one was the Mandal agitation. That
Yes,
was about caste.
yes,
Second was about Kamandal, Ram. That was about caste. You had the Assam agitation, you had the Bodo
yes,
agitation in the Northeast.
yes,
These were about ethnicity and region. Then you moved on to Anna Hazare. The protests there were about a rape, very bad thing, a rape, but not about socioeconomic issues. The protest after that was on anti-corruption, not about socioeconomic issues. Then we had CAA, NRC, not about socioeconomic issues.
yes.
So this is the first time in my lifetime almost. I was 6 years old when the Navnirman agitation happened in 1974. In my lifetime, this is the first time that my area of expertise, which is economic prosperity, is at the focus of a agitation. This is an unfolding process that has happened because since this entire agitation process that I have described has taken place, governments have been won and lost on the basis of how they have responded to these agitations, not on the basis of whether Indians are growing more prosperous or not, and especially young Indians. And there was a very good reason for that, that India was more or less continuously prospering since at least independence. I think since 1930, but at least since independence. What do I mean by that? I mean that for most Indians, whether they had legacy wealth, property or gold or something that their father or their mother gave them, for most Indians could expect to be more prosperous at the end of their lives than their fathers. And their fathers could expect to be more prosperous at the end of their lives than their grandfathers. Not in a huge increase. Not that a poor person would become a millionaire, but they would be a little less poor. And this has happened in India in great measure for the last 50 odd years. The biggest evidence I can give you of that is that in 1991, well, let's start in 47. In 47, 70% of my population was below the poverty line. By 1991, about 40% was below the poverty line. Now, only 5% of our population is below the poverty line. So people have become more and more prosperous. What has happened to Gen Z, and this is the most sad thing I feel because I teach them now, is that this is the first generation where if Papa or Mummy hasn't left you a house or given you some gold or some asset, that unless you're a Nepo kid, and by Nepo kid in Gen Z language means unless your Papa is able to pull strings to get you out of the country or get you a job, or take care of you. So unless you're a Nepo kid, if you don't have legacy, you are going to be less prosperous than your father or mother. Let me give you readers a simple example of that. When I started my job, first job, I was a lecturer, nothing big, in a college in Delhi. 6 months I did that. The pay I got was high enough to pay income tax on.
The first pay,
First salary I paid income tax.
first salary you pay.
Not a single person today who graduates with a master's degree or an MBA gets a salary enough to pay income tax. When I got my first job, I was in Delhi. There's an area of Delhi now very posh, that time a starting area called Vasant Kunj. You can think of Patparganj. These are startup middle class areas when I was a young man.
The Dr. Roy,
1989, 1988, 89. Okay. So those was just, these colonies were coming up, like in all cities. I'm sure in Guwahati also it happens. You have new colonies coming up, and that is where young people buy houses, right? So that time there was no EMI, but if there was, I could have dreamt that in 5 or 6 years I would have enough saved to put down a down payment, take EMI, and buy a house in Vasant Kunj. Today, no child can hope to do that. So they don't pay income tax, not because the government is very kind to you, because they're too poor to pay income tax. I don't know if your listeners know what the threshold for payment of income tax is in terms of income. It is now 1 lakh rupees a month. If you earn a 5-figure monthly salary, you do not pay income tax. Now, the only escape from this, the only way to, in a sense, prove your prosperity was the offer that was given to you, and this has been going on before the BJP, Congress also. Was ki, beta, sorry, you have no influence, you have no nepotism, you can't escape this country. That's the first option for everybody. You try to go to Dubai. If you're really rich, you try to go to London or the US. So, chalo koi baat nahi. We will give you a series of competitive exams that you can take. You sit and take them, and then you will get a job, a government type job, be it, law or medicine on the outside, or some kind of babu position in the government or some policeman or something. All the jobs that people in Assam and Nagaland and Manipur so badly want. And they want it because it gives them security. But what I meant by indentured slavery is that to
Yes.
get those jobs, you start off by becoming a slave to a coaching center. Then you become a
That,
slave to a competitive
did,
exam.
did
And you
anybody
pick up,
else, Dr. Rai, did anybody else actually use this, is
no,
it
I'm the first to
terminology?
use it. I'm the first to use it. And then you become a slave to an exam. Not just that, in the moments of your life when you should be young and exploring the world, you sit in a coaching center and you take exams repeatedly with less than a 5% chance of succeeding. And if you, of course, pass these exams, you have become prosperous. But that prosperity comes with slavery. Comes with slavery to a government order. If you're a policeman, it comes with slavery. You have to obey the order to beat up children. If you become a civil servant, an IAS officer, or even a tehsildar, it comes with the order to overlook a land mafia, right? You have to obey laws that you don't believe in. You do not have freedom of expression. Even if you're a doctor, you do not have. If you're a government servant or anything associated with government, even a university lecturer is limited in their freedom of
Absolutely.
speech or
Yes,
expression.
yes.
Okay, so that is why I call it indentured slavery. For your prosperity, the only option you were given was gulami. Today, even that process, this government is so incompetent that they are not even able to foolproof that process of indentured slavery. इसलिए इन लोगों को इतना गुस्सा आ रहा है. There are three levels of gussa here. One, they are young and you're telling them that the only way you're going to escape low prosperity is by entering a process of these stupid competitive exams. What does that mean? No education. You only crack exams. When I was young, my parents would tell me, you get educated, and because you're educated, you'll get a job. Now, parents tell their children, get educated so that you can get a job. Two very different statements, and a very troubling reflection on the degradation of our society in this country. Not politics, society. I'm talking about parents here. So, this indentured slavery system has also broken down now. So, the
Even
students
that,
have
even that,
absolute, pardon?
even that slavery system has
Yeah.
also broken down.
And the common person without a legacy, without nepotism, somebody who is not Dharmendra Pawan's daughter, is angry because every single one of these ministers' children are abroad. They have escaped indentured slavery. They have escaped lack of prosperity. They have exited. But their parents continue to administer a broken, faulty system. Now, would that not anger you if the consequence of that meant that at the age of 20, your life is bleak while they can sit there, enjoy their lives, live in the lap of luxury, post reels about what a wonderful life they're having in Boston or Harvard or whatever, and then come back here and use the police and use the system to lord it over you? While, so basically, you are condemned to do communal rioting in Assam, to do Mr. Hemanta Biswa's dirty work. I'm talking about Assam now. Ask him
Yes,
where his
correct.
children are. Ask him where his
Absolutely.
children are. Hmm?
Absolutely.
They are not doing communal rioting. They're not talking about Muslims are bad. They're not talking about CAA. They're not talking about NRC. They're not the gundas who are servicing Mr. Biswa for one piece of fish, maybe, and some rice if they're lucky. Right? His children are enjoying themselves, and they're very liberal if you meet them abroad. Right? And this is true not just of Mr. Biswa. I'm saying that because
Yes.
he's your chief minister.
And I should give you one information that his son, young son, 18-year-old son, he is the owner of 18 competition.
There you go. So people are not stupid. What has happened with these people is because they have done Hindu Muslim for so long, and the millennials and the boomers have become their allies in keeping them in government without doing any hard work. I have practically been told by the BJP politicians, not Mr. Biswa. Luckily, I don't have to meet that man. I don't want to meet someone as terrible as him. But even slightly more reasonable, at least on the face, BJP politicians told me, Dr. Roy, we win elections without worrying about unemployment. We win elections without worrying about prosperity. And you know how we do that? We do that because we talk about Hindu Muslim, and we do one more thing. We throw some charity at them. So every single political party in India is participating in what I call compensatory politics, and the boomers and the millennials have bought into it. Take some free bus ride. Take some money for your food grain subsidy. Take some money for some land subsidy. some Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. My generation and the generation before me and the generation after me, they have got into the chakkar like beggars of running after these compensatory subsidies. But the real prosperity to a person that comes, which I've been telling Gen Z and they understand, they're much brighter than my generation, comes not from taking begging handouts from the government. Comes from saying that whether Mr. Horma is in power or Mr. Gogoi is in power, I will get a job or I will do something which enables me to feed my family, to put clothes on their back, to buy one house in my lifetime without subsidy, to keep my family healthy and to keep my family educated.
Yes.
I
We
do not
had,
want subsidy to do that. That is called
yes,
human dignity. Now that we
yes.
have eliminated poverty, because if you're poor, you require subsidy, people are not poor, but they're not prosperous. And this generation's demand is we want to be prosperous and we will not allow a corrupt government headed by people who get their Nepo kids out of this system to make sure that I live in low prosperity while they enjoy the fruits of corrupt office. That's what I meant by indentured slavery, and that was the nub of my article.
No, it was actually now I understand why you readily agreed to be interviewed. Because you see, these very things, what I feel, right? I feel very strongly when our youths, the Gen Zs, they are agitating at different places all over the country. I feel like as if I could put this on a TV screen and they could watch this.
Yes.
And that is why you readily agree that, okay, let the people of this country, let the Gen Zs hear what exactly is the situation. We are discussing it, they are experiencing it. We are
And I am so
discussing,
grateful to them. I had given up hope in this country that the courage to protest against an extractive, cruel, cynical establishment had gone forever. So I'm deeply thankful to Gen Z
yes, yes, yes,
that they have, yes, they have
they
shown
have,
that there is a generation of
yes,
Indians,
yes,
because
yes,
Indians were very brave once upon a time,
yes, yes, yes. No,
who have
that,
shown that
yes,
no, we are
correct,
not cowards, do what you please.
yes,
They've even got the prime minister to produce, by the way, a very bad reel on Instagram. Godi
yes,
media is irrelevant now because Gen Z doesn't watch them. The कौन है
yes.
NDTV? मैंने मालूम. You know, who is NDTV? We don't know who is
Yeah,
NDTV. What is
yeah,
Aksar?
yes,
I don't know what is
yes,
Aksar.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
Godi media is irrelevant. The prime minister is telling his ministers to make more reels. Ministers are making reels and looking even more stupid because there's no sincerity in them. So
Yes,
Gen Z is only, and the Gen Z has taught us one thing I've never liked. I must tell your viewers. I've been reasonably successful in my life in terms of official position, all that. Not that it matters. But I've noticed one thing when I'm working in government of India also. People get so pompous in this country when they become successful. Extremely pompous. You know, this generation has pricked that pomposity.
yes, correct.
And the most
No, no,
pompous person in this country is our prime minister. And now he will never be able to be pompous anymore without the whole of young India
yeah,
laughing at him. I thank
absolutely.
Generation Z for that.
No, no, absolutely. Because yeah, that day I was there. There was a protest going on in Guwahati itself, and I went there, and I was for a surprise. I was for a surprise because my family members, my nephews, and you see others. So nieces, I first thing I saw them. I said, how come? They were not political people. They were all around there, and they were ready. And the kind of slogans they were putting there, they're very meaningful. They're very meaningful. There's no bias. There's no castes. There's no communal thing.
Nothing.
They're very meaningful and they're deeply political. Deeply political.
Exactly.
This understanding actually, that is why maybe we need to, and we do not actually, your article, you have been using certain terminologies, new terminologies, maybe which actually fit with their temperament. And people like us, maybe we do not know their language, their vocabulary, their aspirations, their imaginations, the way they are putting things. So you have correctly, very rightly captured the spirit. Now, this is what is happening. And another aspect, my next question is about that. And another thing which has also added to the worry and cause of these people is, has the predicament of the Gen Z been further deepened by the AI technology?
Yes. This is something that I am on the front lines of because I teach Gen Z. And You see, my generation and the generation before that in India, it was very sad. We were, people talk about the British and Macaulay. Macaulay wanted to convert India. Macaulay was a British administrator for your viewers, who was the father of Indian education.
I know.
And he is the person who created
And he
Babus.
said that one shelf of books, Eastern books, is equal to the West. You see, the
Yes,
one shelf of European books is
equal to
actually
one.
equal
And the
to.
reason was that was all propaganda. And the reason was that Macaulay understood that for British rule to survive, he had to create essentially the word Babu comes from that, an army of clerks. Whether the clerks worked in the police or the army, or in civil service, or in writers' building, or in the presidency towns, an army of clerks were more prosperous than their fellow citizens, but only a little more prosperous. But their prosperity was dependent on the legitimacy of the state. And that army of clerks was the instrument by which the British ruled the country. They were not very highly educated or skilled because they were clerks. And the education that they were given, therefore, was just enough to allow them to become clerks, but not more than clerks. This system, unfortunately, was perpetuated in India, except that the technology changed and the instruments changed. So it stays the same with the IAS, IPS, provincial civil service, वही clerks हैं. And their entire personality is dependent on their government job. I have an IPS officer friend in Assam, a senior IPS officer. He has no personality, except that he is whatever additional special director general, jo bhi bolo, or who is the chief secretary of Assam. When he retires, who will remember him? Before he became chief secretary, who cares what he is? All the respect he gets is because of his chair, right? That's what a clerk is. A clerk takes respect from their chair, and the moment they lose their chair, they're nobody. Who is your chief secretary? I don't even know his name. Why should I know his name? Somebody may know his name because he wants a favor from him. That is what Macaulay wanted. So all these great Rai Bahadurs and IAS officers and IPS officers, successors of ICS officers, major generals in the army, you know, you will remember a handful of them because they are different from the mob. But the mob
Yes,
that is created,
yes.
their
No,
respect, their
don't.
status all comes from their kursi.
Correct, correct, correct.
So same thing we did in the private sector. So basically we created in the last 20, 30 years, an army of engineers, doctors, etc., who were not respected for their skills. They were respected for the status and the income they got from their jobs. Latest in that line was an IT professional, what I call a coding coolie. Most millennials became coding coolies.
You call them?
Coding coolies, coders, I call them
Okay,
coolies.
coding coolies, yes.
And when I came back to India in 2014, I noticed that people were telling me, very important to be data driven. We are data driven. I said, ये सब बकवास तुम्हें किसने बोला? Data is your servant, not your master. Ideas are your master. You use data to fight for your ideas. You are not driven by data. Then you are manipulated. Now, our entire educational system moved away from teaching people how to think towards teaching people how to manipulate. These are like blue tabbed white collar workers. Worker क्या करता है? Repetitive jobs. White collar worker, what does he do? Supposed to use his brain to do things. They're just following a process, following a procedure, and repeating it. Your average HR manager in a company, what do? They don't use their brains. They follow a procedure. Your average coder in an AI company, what do? They don't use their brains. They follow a procedure. In that sense, they're better paid and they speak English and they go for parties to nice restaurants. They're not different from your state transport corporation driver. He also follows a procedure. So in that process, our white collar workforce and our universities and all of us stopped learning how to think. And to get these jobs, didn't know how to think. You didn't have to know. All we had to do was pass a multiple choice exam or some exam like NEET, right? Even to become university lecturers, right? So we forgot to teach people how to think. I'm trying to reverse that with Gen Z, and Gen Z understands this by explaining to them that AI cannot be your master, then you won't have a job. Because the big AI revolution is about eliminating people who don't know how to think. Tomorrow, the master of AI will be the person who knows how to think. I know how to think. AI cannot beat me. I can reproduce a text page of AI in 1 minute. And I can write a page of text, which the AI checker will say this is 95% AI. And then I can write a page of text where the AI checker will say this is 5% AI. Because To be able to think, you have to know how to ask questions. You have to know how to be critical. That is what an education is. That is not what skilling is. अब तुम्हें कॉर्पोरेट मजदूर बनाना है और आईटी मजदूर बनाना है तो एक एग्जिस्टेंशियल क्राइसिस आ जाएगा बिकॉज इफ यू डू दैट मजदूर कैन ऑलवेज बी रिप्लेस्ड बाय मशीन दैट्स ऑल एआई इज डूइंग दे रिप्लेसिंग योर व्हाइट कॉलर मजदूर विद अ मशीन so I told this to the Gen Z kids ever since I've come back. I've been talking to them about this and saying, listen to me, if you want to survive in this world, learn how to think. Forget all this job career. या तो मैकोलॉजी जैसे तुम क्लार्क बनो. Go and take competitive exams. I'm not interested in you. Then you become like millennials.
क्लब
You are irrelevant to
ये
human history.
क्लार्क बन जाओ.
But if you want to live, with dignity, with joy, then master your arts of thinking, and you will master AI. AI क्या AI का बाप will
Absolutely,
not be able to take away
absolutely.
your livelihood from you. That is what I mean by the existential threat of AI, because the entire education system is still focused on teaching people how to do routine operations. It is not focused on teaching people how to think. And we have to change that, and I'm going to start changing it.
That's good. That's really that's. Uh, Now you see this this discussion. Now you simple practical questions, issues, and thinking behind those things. You explain so plainly in a
Thank you.
simple way. I'm so impressed by it. The people should actually listen to this conversation. Now, and I do not know. It is going so fast. I have not realized actually. My third question is, you have partly actually answered this question, but still, I would like you to elaborate a little more on it. That many people they critique the reform initiated by Manmohan Singh when he was the finance minister and Narasimha Rao was the prime minister. But you see, what happened? Those reforms brought prosperity to a large section of people. In actually in 90s, large section of people, middle class. But why is the present dispensation is also all the time they're speaking about reform, privatization, this and that. But where is the prosperity? Where is the prosperity? Now, if the parents, you have already explained, the parents, they have the house, they have good pension. Even the students forget about actually paying income tax. They don't even earn their beginning salary is not even whatever their parents get as pension.
Yeah. That is because governments, we did one big reform in the 1990s. And that was a supply side reform, as we economists call it, which is we freed up the country from industrial licensing and we allowed the country to trade more with the outside world. And that definitely brought benefits to us. And in that process, Narasimha Rao ji, the United Front government, even Mr. Vajpayee and UPA 1, managed to alleviate the lot of the poorest of the poor. Two things we did not do, which is, when you reform, you make some money. How do you spend that money? If you look at countries that spent that money successfully to deepen reform and broaden it, a large chunk of that money was spent on three things which India never spent its money on. It was spent on research and development, it was spent on education, and it was spent on good healthcare. India never did that. And instead, what we spent that dividend on was first allowing a huge increase in public sector pay through the pay commission I was part of and the pay commission before me, fifth and sixth pay commissions. So today, a senior IAS officer cost to company is about the same as a senior manager in the private sector. So we increased public sector pay, and that had a ripple effect because when you increase public sector pay, they go and spend that money. And when they spend that money, they buy things, and therefore more things are produced and people get jobs. We also change relative prices. So the prices of some things that used to be luxuries became much cheaper in the 90s and 2000s. Let me explain that. It's no longer true. So let me take my own example. When I got my first job, my salary was 3,500 rupees a month. Just viewers, just pay attention to
Same,
the
same,
numbers.
same with me. Same, exactly same.
So just pay attention, viewers. The numbers are important. They're not complicated numbers. 3,500. I think I paid 500 rupees tax. So take home was 3,000. Now, for 3,000 rupees a month, what could I buy in the market? I could buy a house if I saved. That was the good thing that you can't do now. But a Maruti car, basic model, those days, you may remember Maruti 800, it cost about 1,20,000 rupees.
Yes.
So how many months' salary? Almost 3,000 times 90, 3.5 years' salary to buy one car. Hmm? Air conditioner in those days cost about 25,000 rupees. How many months' salary? That's why we never had any air conditioners. 9 months' salary. Okay. A plane ticket from Bombay to Delhi in those days cost 3,500 rupees exactly. 1 month's salary. Today, fast forward. How much is the cheapest car? The cheapest car is about 4 lakhs.
4 lakhs.
And that same guy, entry level lecturer, now gets a salary of about 70,000 rupees. Hmm? How many months' salary? 6 months' salary. 3.5 years' salary, then 6 months' salary now. Air ticket from Bombay to Delhi is about 5,000 rupees. That time it was 3,000, 1 month's salary. 5,000 divided by 60,000, only 3 days' salary. So the prices of many luxuries, things that used to be luxuries, became cheaper. That's why everybody can fly on Indigo. Nobody takes the train, right? But the prices of necessities did not go down. And the prices of things that were not luxuries but permitted a diffusion of prosperity were not available at affordable prices to the next tranche of the population as time went on. By affordable prices, I mean without subsidy. The one thing that was India could not produce, let me explain. You have escaped poverty. You're earning some money. God help you. There is no great health or other emergency in your family. You are two people. Let's say you're earning about 20,000 rupees each. Earning 30, 40,000 rupees. You're not paying income tax, but you're not poor. You're earning about, that would mean about 3 times the minimum wage. All over India, whatever the minimum wage is. Now, prosperity means that there are at least 5 things that you should be able to go to the market. I'm not a communist. Should be able to go to the market and buy at prevailing prices without subsidy. So they have to be cheap enough for you to afford with your salary of 20,000, combined family income of 40,000, and they have to be made in India. None of these are. What are they? 5 things. Food, basic, agriculture. 1 billion people's food grains are subsidized. It means you may earn so much money. And 1 billion, there are not 1 billion poor people in this country. There are only 43 million poor people in this country. So we are talking about people earning more than the minimum wage. Even their food has to be subsidized. Well, clothing. This shirt is quite expensive, what I'm wearing. This costs, well, forget this shirt, I have an even more expensive one. Marks and Spencer. 4,000 rupees. Made in India, 95%. Wow, Atmanirbhar. But the Aam Aadmi, not the poor man, Aam Aadmi, does not buy a 3,000 rupee shirt. They buy a 400 rupee shirt. 82% of those shirts are made in Bangladesh or Vietnam. So we can make shirts for rich people. We can't make shirts for poor people. Housing. Somebody earning 40,000 rupees a month, that means they're earning about 5 lakhs a year. There's no tax. Matlab, let's say that, 5 lakhs a year should give you a EMI mortgage of 20, 25 lakhs का loan. Okay? कहाँ है घर? Where is the house in a metro for 20 lakhs? Who is going to give you EMI? Then you have to go again, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, ye wo, bheek mango, collector ke paas jao, get their signature, horma dega. Again, you have become my baap. Again, you have subsidy. Healthcare. I don't have to tell you. It's not affordable at these prices. I'm not asking for cancer. I'm saying, yeah, just basic healthcare. If my child gets pneumonia, I should be able to go to a hospital and pay the bills. Not a bill. Quality education, not available. They are wasting
Nothing.
money on crap private education. So the five things that any common man wants to buy with their salary without subsidy is not available in India. Now, why is this so important? Imagine another universe. We have 7, 8% growth, but no prosperity. GDP is growing by 7%, 8%, but no prosperity. Imagine what is driving this GDP growth. Suppose two-thirds of the GDP was growing because of agriculture, housing, health, education, and textiles, bought by common people without subsidy. Another 20% came from exports, and the rest came from Indigo and AC and Gadi and all the things that are called fast moving indicators. Then you would have what I call inclusive growth. What you have in this country is growth in which most people are not participating. Therefore, they're not earning enough to be prosperous on their own.
Yes, it's an
Therefore, they're relying on
artificial growth.
subsidies.
Artificial growth. It's an artificial growth.
It's an artificial growth because some people are doing the growing.
Yes,
Then they're giving you some crumbs. They're
yes,
throwing
yes,
thook at you.
yes,
And
absolutely.
therefore, you're not getting prosperity. So the big reform we needed in this country, which was to use the benefits of that initial growth, not to make airline tickets more affordable or cars more affordable or cream more affordable or foreign holidays more affordable, but to make the basics of life available in the market at affordable prices without subsidy, that reform has failed. I've written about this extensively. And that is the key to unlocking India's prosperity. And we don't have much time left. If we get locked into this system for another 5 or 6 years, it's curtains for us. So the prosperity change will come. I have a very simple slogan in Hindi इसके लिए जहां घर वहीं नौकरी हम बनाएंगे जो हम खरीदेंगे. We will make what we buy and we will work where we live. No Assamese should have to go as far as Telangana
Kerala.
to get a job. And what kind of job do they get? What kind of job? Not that they're coming here and working in manufacturing. They're working as people's domestic servants.
Nothing.
They're working in some small hotel, right? Mr. Horma should think about that. He's worried about immigrants to Assam. What about Assamese going out of Assam? Have they even seen the kind of work he does? The people he does parties with, whose waiters are serving him, does he care about them? No. So until we change the way in which we take seriously the economic power of the common man who lives here, because we have got rid of poverty now. अब अमीर गरीब की बात नहीं कर रहे हैं. We are talking about somebody earning the minimum wage versus some super rich. So we have to tilt it towards those earning the minimum wage, not through subsidy, through opportunity.
So it's possible. No? You are saying that okay, if we do not do it now. Actually, my last question is about agitation. But then you have said it so nicely, and you said that okay, now the the young people on the street, the young people protesting on the street. You see, so it's not that. That means it's not that we cannot solve their problems. If we wish, maybe we can solve their problems.
Of course. But for that, unfortunately, we have to get out of two defeated generations leading them. My generation, Generation X, and the millennials, and also the boomers, people like Modi, because this is a defeated generation. They're content with very small things. But to transform this country in ways that benefit the largest young population in the world will require a new, younger, more active, more inclusive mindset. This generation has shown us they can be inclusive. They have done the most important thing that I had despaired of in India. Let me tell your viewers this to conclude, maybe. The Constitution of India, preamble, it says this, the state government shall guarantee every citizen liberty, state's responsibility, shall secure equality, state's responsibility, shall promote fraternity. I don't know the word in Assamese. The word in Hindi is very bad. Bhaichara. It's not correct.
No, it is bhatritvabodh.
The much better word, bhatritvabodh.
Bhatritvabodh.
But that cannot be promoted by a government. That has to be promoted by society. And the first thing I noticed when I come back to India from abroad? The traffic. It shows a low fraternity society. because nobody is willing to do the courtesy of letting someone pass so that everyone can move in a faster way. Everybody is atomized. India had become a highly unfraternal, atomized society. All the ingredients were there. After all, we have a caste system, right? Which is the most unfraternal thing you can have. Fraternity is essential for us to make this economic change. We have to care about the welfare of Indians like us who are not as prosperous as us. It's not charity. It's not my baap कि तू गरीब है मैं अमीर हूं मैं तुम्हारे साथ charity करूंगा. No, it's we are all Indians. You're just prosperous than me. I'm more prosperous than you. But I care about your prosperity. That signal I see in this Gen Z. Look at how egalitarian they are. People are meeting in Delhi from Assam, from South India, from Gujarat. They're leaving their parents' houses, coming without homes. They're being given food and shelter. People are sending food and water to the
Yes.
protesters. The protesters are sharing everything, right? They are crossing barriers of language. And there is a certain joy in that, which I know that my own city, Bombay, when people went out to protest, you could see that joy in their faces. There was a joy of going into the homes, into the roads of the rich in Nariman Point, right? And protesting in fraternity. That fraternity is a very important quality this generation has. They certainly have intelligence and they certainly have courage. So our best bet is to back this generation. And I have only one message for my generation and the previous one. तुम राम मंदिर करो राम मस्जिद करो ये करो वो करो get out of their way because ये एक रथ आ रहा है ना and this will crush you if you don't let this generation have their way. They are not willing to become mediocrities like you. I'm not willing to let them become mediocrities like you. And this country will prosper by not being mediocre. These kids know how to do it. They have the fraternity to do it, and they will do it. Get out of their way.
You have put it so beautifully, and the best thing is that just 70 years before or 80 years before, when the constitution was in the making, you see the builders of India, modern India, they could visualize it. They could visualize it, and they visualize it so correctly. That is why they put it in the preamble of the constitution. And what we need to do, we just need to act upon it. We just need to act upon it. We just need to practice it. And maybe the solution, this and one thing you have said, that okay, this generation is our, you see, inspiration, and this, we can do justice to this generation if we can put the preamble of our constitution in action. If we can implement that, then problem could be resolved this problem could be resolved. I think that should be the greatest message at this moment. I'm so grateful to you for whatever we have discussed and whatever you have said, because and these are not big theories. These are practical things. These are practical things, and these are workable things. So doable things. So I'm greatly privileged that you could spare time for our audience. And I'm sure next time also, this is not the first and last time I will have interaction with you. And for this, I must also thank Parakala Prabhakar, who sent me your article and then which led to this discussion this interview. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.